Hello and welcome to the DeBrief. I'm Benga Aboroa. Today on the show, we'll be looking at the question, we'll be asking the question, are youths really interested in politics? Youths in Africa make up a huge percentage of the population, but when it comes to representation in elective offices, the numbers are quite low. And joining me to discuss this on today's DeBrief are two gentlemen. The first is Seun Dania. Is an IT professional, child rights advocate, gender equality and mental health advocate. Thanks for joining us on the DeBrief, Seun Dania. And to my left is Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivar. He contested for the Senate seat on the PDP for Lagos West in the just concluded general elections a few months ago. Yeah, thanks for joining me, guys. Let's get straight into the action. Do you think youths are interested in politics or not?
I think youths are very interested in politics. I feel that I've been thinking about this a lot, and I feel that we're in a generation that is of the social media generation, a generation that believes that things should be handed over in a simpler, easily accessible way. And I mean, you look at Big Brother and you see the amount of youth participation involved in the selection process, even the paying for election thing. But you find that people have a lot of opinions about politics, but in terms of the participation, I feel they believe that it should be made a lot more accessible, a lot easier. Now, unfortunately, that's not the reality, because power is not something that is really given. You know, you have to take it. So that's something that I feel needs to be changed in the minds of youth, to encourage them to start to actually actively get their interest, to be active and, you know, change that potential energy into like more of a kinetic one.
Now, Seun, I noticed you were nodding you were shaking your head in disagreement when Gbadebo was talking. It's like you don't really agree with him. You know, the Google vice president was in Nigeria last year, and some of the most searched words on Google were how to make banga, how to shaku shaku, Davido's new song and all of that. Nothing inspiring. Do you think Nigerian youths are ready? He did also mention Big Brother, and I mean, fans are erecting billboards in different states. I don't think anybody came up to erect a billboard on their own free volition for Gbadebo when he contested. Do you have a different take to it?
So personally, I agree with him with what he has said. So I try to take it from the root cause. You know, what has caused our youth not to want to participate in politics. So I'll put it from a personal point of view. You know, growing up, my grandfather was a politician. You know, he was a lawmaker in the Second Republic. And even after all that time, you know, part of the Nadeco, even with the new, the Fourth Republic and all that, he always said, don't go into politics, don't go into politics. They tried to make you feel like it is a dirty game. It is something that we should not be part of. So a lot of people have grown up that way, feeling if you need to go into politics, you need to, you know, I mean, it takes an arm and a leg. So people do not want to venture into it. And then we see that there's been sometimes a lot of political violence, and then like he said, we're the social media generation. We don't like trouble. We want to do things in a structured manner. And then the thing is, the way the politics is, the current Nigerian political environment is very, very rough. And I need to give him kudos, because he has contested quite a number of times, you know, putting, you know, heads on, facing all the challenges and, you know, damning whatever the consequences are. But in terms of we being ready, that root cause, a lot of people have been scared away from that politics. But we need to understand that it is our time, it is our generation, our lives are built around
politics is very important.
It's very, very important. We need to be part of it.
Now, Gbadebo, you have on-the-field experience. You're a young veteran politician. You started with the Ikeja local government chairmanship race and then Lagos West Senatorial District. What's your experience been like on the field? And do you agree to the assertion that, you know, politics is a dirty game and all of that? And that's why a lot of young people stay out of it.
I think politics is really a manifestation of the amount of people that are interested in it actively. You see, like he said, most of our parents were telling us that politics is bad. Our pastors were saying politics is bad. Imams are saying politics is bad. So there's a certain caliber of people that are the pervasive type in politics. Now, the more like-minded people that have good intentions for the country get involved in politics. Then you see it starts to become saturated of people that want to talk about ideas and manifestos and programs, And when that starts to happen, there's less time to be just talking about nonsense or just singing songs or just making noise and just walking about. So I feel that in my own experience, I've had a very positive experience. I can't lie. I've not been attacked. Yes, there might have been threats and everything, but I thank God, I've had very good runs, and you find that people are also interested in hearing what you have to say. They might not be used to people coming to talk to them about programs. They are used to people just coming and sharing money or buying them food. But it doesn't mean that they're not interested in what you have to say, especially when you actually understand the peculiarities of that particular local government or that particular ward, and if you've done the research work. So you know what's important to them. So they know you're coming from a place of empathy and knowledge, You'll find very welcoming hearts. Now, the question is, on the day of the election, would that heart and that mind still be there to vote regardless
or will it be influenced by
or will it be influenced?
Something
And that's where we're...
Shenwo, a lot of young people talk about an enabling environment, that politics is dirty and all of that. Would we always have an enabling environment, or is it utopian to dream of an enabling environment for people to participate in politics? I remember talking off camera, you did talk about the cost of nomination forms and all of that, that even though the Senate passed a not too young to run bill, that it was just basically cosmetic because the cost of politics is astronomical.
Yeah, so young people, like he said, we need to have a lot of like-minded people invading that space. That's what's going to be able to make that change. Because now we have it's a lot of money politics. It's about who you know, how you know, and it's the same way that's being sold, even in the private sector. Before you get a job, people used to say back in the day that, oh yes, you need to know somebody to get into this office or to get into this particular position. But you find out that if you actually go out there and you do the work, it might not be, it'll be difficult, but it doesn't end up being what people have said. So it's for us as young people to get into that space, It's like I said, it's our future. Our lives depend on the way the government runs, so we need to participate. Citizens' participation in governance is very, very important.
So we've established that we need young people in that space. We need to invade that space. But how do you get them away from English Premier League, from Big Brother, from Naira Marley, all this? And how do you galvanize interest? I noticed that in an election year, people are very active. They talk about elections and all. And then after that, we wait for the next 4 years. What programs and in what creative ways can we sustain youth interest in politics and get them to be concerned about the things that happen?
I'm going to answer that question and also touch on the question you just asked previously. Yes. I cannot speak for all parties, but within the PDP, it was not cosmetic in the sense that, for instance, I'll give you a simple example. The House of Rep form was about 2.5 million before. They reduced it by 1 million. And they literally asterisk because of the not too young to run.
Oh, so literally, that's a positive.
That's a very positive. 1 million is not a small amount to spend on a ticket. And also, just the embrace, that tagline alone, just registering a lot of people's minds. So you find that a lot of elders start to open the doors for younger people. Like, I got a ticket. That might not have happened.
I'm in a Senate.
Senate seat for the largest central district. That might not happen if there was not that not too young to run movement that was generated. So that's one. So the parties need to embrace youth more. That's what I was going to say. The second thing is, there is no generation that is not faced with an intrinsic obstacle to get involved or get power. There's never been a generation.
It's never given on the
It's not given. Yeah. I mean, when you look at the Herbert Macaulays, they were going against colonialism. You look at the Asiwaju Tinubus, they were going against the military. There's always something. And when people have power, they're not going to make it easy for you to take it. All the older politicians know that the youth make up the majority. Whether you see it or not, they are scared. They are scared. So they are not going to give you internet ability to collect your voters' cards. They are not going to make you be able to vote online when they know that that's the easy thing to do. They know that you will not come out to vote. So they constantly control the odds. So it's for us to realize that this is the barrier and then for us to scale that barrier.
Okay. You're still watching the debrief on News Central. We'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we have some more for you. Do stay with us. Welcome back to the debrief, and we're talking about the question, are young people really interested in politics? And I have in the studio with me Sean Daniel and Gbadebo Rose Viver. Now, Sean, we see, amongst the youth, the people we refer to as keyboard warriors, they're very internet savvy, and you see discussions going on, heated discussions on Twitter and social media. How can we translate this social media activism to real life? Or do you think it's all just talk? And are there benefits to activism on social media too?
So what it is a lot of people want to participate. A lot of people are actually interested in governance. A lot of people, but then the environment is not, conducive for them. So a lot of people, because of the way elections go, where there could be violence outside, and then I think it's kind of psychological, where people try to be with the winning team all the time. Everybody wants to support who's winning. So even when they understand your program, they like your program, they like what you are bringing to them, they kind of feel, I don't want my friends to insult me because I voted for someone who lost. So everybody's trying to always be on the winning. So what it is we have to, as a generation, understand that we need to scale these obstacles. We actually have to face it head on.
And talking about youth involvement on social media, we did take this question to our Twitter, and we conducted a poll. Let's have a look at the results. So we asked the question, to what extent do you participate in politics? And overwhelming majority, 70%, did choose voting in elections. Meager 5% said running for office. That's understandable. And engaging in protests, 5%. Social media activism, 20%. So interesting result there. Yeah, and then we also went to Instagram to ask this question. How do you participate in politics? Elections, 75%, and activism, 25%. That's the result there. Okay, now, Gbadebo, interesting statistics we just saw there, and it's expected. How do we get people to, 4 years can, the
change
decisions
a lot of things
politicians make in 4 years can have generational impacts. How do we get people to know that politics is not a once in 4 years thing?
Exactly.
And how do you sustain interest?
I think the first step is something like this. What we are doing is fantastic. People watch it and they have in their minds that, it's not a 4-year seasonal thing. Another thing is to disabuse the mind of this herd mentality that Sean also talked about, where you want to build the winning team, even though you know that Nigeria is not the poverty capital of the world. You need to realize that these things you read in the news are really affecting your life. It's not like Premiership where they play football, there's a score and you support them and then you can just go about your daily life. These things affect your life. Your inability for your government to make sound policies affects your capacity to get a visa. Right? Everybody wants to travel. It affects the price of food in the market. It affects the quality of healthcare you get. It affects the quality of education. So these things matter. And if not for yourself, think about the children you are bringing into this world and Nigeria that they are coming to meet. So we need to get involved. And politicians also cannot afford to be these sleeping 4-year, they wake up, They need to be active. They need to be going on interviews and actually making an impact in different wards and communities through foundations, which is what I'm doing. And also learning from the process as well. So those things then help you gather a larger base and hopefully do better in the next elections.
Now, Sean, art has always been a tool to draw attention to issues. You're movie producer yourself. In the past, we've seen people like Fela Kuti, and apart from Fowles, the Kutis, and a few people, most of what we get in this generation are just songs about, And you don't blame them, it's their art. I'm not going to police anybody's creative license and say you have to sing about politics all the time and all the negative things in the country. But do you think some of these big stars, I'm not saying you should leave your craft and start protesting all the time, but once in a while, if we had our major artists chip in and talk about some of these issues, do you think it will change anything? And are they doing enough?
So we're lacking. Well, yeah, definitely the creative arts are a way to engage this current generation in their own domain, because everybody wants to be entertained.
Yeah.
So everybody likes to see something, but then psychologically, you can pass subliminal messages and impactful messages through these little things. So I think the Fela Kutis actually did well, but I don't think for our generation that radicalism would actually have an impact. We should work towards messages that will let people, as Badibo said, see how their lives are affected by the current decisions that are being made. And think about the next coming generation and see the way their lives are. So it's not okay for people to say and think that, well, they just want to be entertained. So half the time in the entertainment space you hear, oh, well, I just want to be entertained. I don't want to think about Nigeria's problems. Well, those problems are your problems. When you, after you, it's, the entertainment, is a quick fix. You laugh for a minute, but you wake up the next day with all your problems.
Still there. Yeah.
So we need to, as a generation, understand that the human being is not able to consciously make decisions that would affect their lives positively. So we, as either through the creative arts, through media, through everything, propagate these messages positively for people to understand that everything that they are doing, everything the government is doing, it's for them. Everybody cannot be in office. Everybody cannot run for office. So we all nominate people to represent us and to lead us. So they need to know and hold those people accountable.
Okay. Badibo, you've been on the field, you have experience, and we've seen a young generation of politicians around Africa. It's almost like a movement. You have the MDC's Nelson Chamisa in Zimbabwe and the EFF's Julius Malema in South Africa. And we see this youthful movement, Bobby Wine in Uganda. Do you think this wave is going to come to West Africa? Are we going to witness it in Nigeria, or it's just a Southern African thing?
I believe we have some solid politicians that are, cutting their teeth right now. A lot of people have started quite early. You have the speaker in Oyo State. I'm sure that a lot of good things are going to come out of him. Even the governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, is relatively young and compared to the rest. And he's also someone that really believes in the youth. You see that in the appointments that he's made. And there are a number of commissioners, a number of people that are coming up. I think, for the longest time, we cannot overemphasize the brain programming that families did about just saying that politics is for bad people. Yes. So it's like there's an awakening now that people that are unlearning what they were taught as they were younger, and just even the church. The church is doing voter drives now, get your PVC, they're talking about politics. This was not done like 8 years ago. If anything, they would just talk about how a certain president should die. Well, it was not about go and vote, But now there's a movement towards you guys go into politics, join a party, get your voters card, vote. So I'm very optimistic about voter participation in the next 8 years. About the way the country is going, that's a different conversation.
Okay. We spoke to a South African journalist, Ibusisiwe Nyanda, to get her feel on youth participation in politics in South Africa, and this is what she had to say.
It's misplaced for older generations to say that young people don't care about politics because we're keyboard warriors or we only want to talk about politics on social media. I think we need to acknowledge the importance of the space of social media in creating dialogues that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to. I mean, for instance, I think about Panyaza Lisufi, who's our MEC for education. And very many times, people who otherwise would never have had access to him are able to talk to him about issues they're having in their rural area, in their township, and they're able to get response quickly. Also, this is the social media space that has helped young people to organize themselves. Whether you're talking about the Fees Must Fall movement, which was essentially about especially black, poor South Africans saying that they want to be able to access tertiary education and they shouldn't be barred. simply by virtue of their not having money to get through school. The Fees Must Fall movement, the Roads Must Fall movement, which was essentially about decolonizing the academic space. Whether you think about the recent march we saw where young women took to the streets to speak against gender-based violence and the inaction of the state and our government institutions, these were organized on social media. People organized themselves, they spoke about it on social media, but they also acted after the fact. So to simply say that social media is a useless means of speaking about your politics, I think is not fair, when not everybody who's going to be part of a political movement is going to be on their feet in that movement. I think about the uprising in Sudan, and many Sudanese people living in the diaspora were making use of their networks and were using social media, were using their blogs to speak to what was happening on the ground. So everything is an important part that speaks to the whole. And young people are just using what they have at their disposal to speak about, what the inadequacies of the government of the day or the status quo are. Also, we're an incredibly politicized young people. We take that from our forefathers as well, who fought against the apartheid regime. So I think we have it in our blood, in our DNA as young people, to be a politicized people, to care about the politics, to care about the status quo, to care about dismantling powers in place that don't represent us and don't represent our needs. And we continue to do so using social media and using many other vehicles that we have at our disposal. Young people not going.
Yeah, and that was Sibasisi Nyanda there. Sharon, she did talk about using social media as a positive force to change things. Is there anything, have we used social media in Nigeria, young people, for advocacy? And do you have any examples of results that came out positive from it?
Yeah, social media is a very good force, it's a good tool. But we need to understand the terrain where we are playing, where the people who we're seeing that they even, the people who are governing us are now coming onto social media because they realize that there's something going on. There's a way to connect with people, and it's actually a way to. But then what we find out is that most people are using handlers. They have people who are managing those social media pages for them. So we are not actually even interacting with the people who we think we're supposed to. So if we understand the terrain where we are operating, we need to know that social media is a force. We see how it has helped, with police and whatnot.
And social issues too. Now, Gbadebo, you've been on the field and you've been you're quite active on social media too. So does social media popularity translate into anything when it comes to politics? And how do you use it to get your message across?
I think that is evolving. I think that especially with Lagos, we're very fortunate in the sense that there's a high internet penetration. Now the question is, I've seen the growth of people actively going from like the 2016 local government elections where I participated into the 2019. There's been growth. A lot of people that are on social media have gone and gotten their voters' cards. A lot of them are also now voting. Not as many as ought to, but there is growth. There's definitely growth. I've seen that. I think that is very important, social media, because it's not just about the votes. It's very important, the votes, but also the awakening of the people is a process.
And consciousness,
Consciousness. It's not just overnight. You're trying to make people unlearn a lot of things. People are saying, there's a video of Oshodi Solo, what happened where some people thugs came and took the votes, turned it over and set it on fire. They're already battling against a lot of apathy in our generation. So you can imagine people watching that on TV.
It will definitely discourage people.
Discourage a lot of people from coming out to vote. And so there's that. So it has to be consistent. So people are mentally prepared when people come and do things like that, And then you also start to create a system of people that will also activate other people, because the truth of the matter is you can only rig or manipulate elections where you are popular, right? True. You can try and do violence and all of that, but if there are a lot of people out there are only so many people you can fight. If up to 60-70% of people that are supposed to vote come out to vote, there's very little rigging that anybody can do.
Now, Sheryl, a lot of young people I've talked to, and I'm sure you can point at your fingers a number of young people that have left Nigeria to Canada because they just don't believe in the future of this country and they've lost hope. Are you optimistic about the future of Nigeria as a young Nigerian?
Oh, well, yes, very, very much. As growing up, I've always believed in Nigeria. I've always seen Nigeria as a country that has potential. If you look at the history of Nigeria, Nigeria is still a very, very great nation. We heard about times when foreigners used to come to UCH, for healthcare. We had people come to Nigeria, studying University of Ibadan. We had, even while we were in primary school, we had foreigners that were in primary school with us. In secondary school we had foreigners, but these days is no longer the case. You don't hardly see people coming from outside the country to get anything in Nigeria. And you see, it's just a little time. It's just within a very, very short space. So I don't believe, I'm very optimistic. We haven't lost hope yet, because that little time, we can always still reverse the cycle.
And Badibo, what do you have, just before we wrap up, what do you have to say about people that say the younger generation are not ready, they are more interested in entertainment, sports, and other things? So we can't give them that power yet.
I feel that the generation that's saying that older and them should look in the mirror and ask themselves what they did to make and program this young generation to be behaving like this. And I feel that it's going to take some time, but they will awaken and rise up to their responsibility.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure talking to you on the DeBrief, and this is where we have to drop the anchor on today's show. We've been talking about youth participation in politics, and our guests have been Sheil Dania and Badibo Road Survivor. Until next time, I'm Benga Aborowa. Thanks for watching.